On today's Locked On Predators podcast, we're going to discuss one very intriguing defensive player. How would Brandon Montour fit in Nashville? And then it's Fun Friday. What questions would we ask players at the NHL Combine?
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this hallelujah, y'all? We made it Friday episode with a shout out to our Locked On Pred heads. Those are our everyday listeners who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support, and we love that we get to spend just a little bit of your day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
So on yesterday's show, Emma and I talked about some potential offensive pieces the Nashville Predators could look to add in the offseason. But there's one defensive player that especially intrigues us, and we're going to talk about that today. Could Brandon Montour be a player worth paying for? Plus, later in the show, it is Fun Friday. Emma and I are going to talk about those combine questions, y'all. Whew. Before we dive into all of that, though, have you ever dreamed of becoming an NHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Well, now you can with Ultimate Hockey GM. It's completely free, and Locked On listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDONNHL in the game store. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Emma, on yesterday's show, we talked about 3 offensive players, what they may be worth, what the, Nashville Predators would be willing to do to get them. But let's kick off this episode by just maybe going back and having a conversation maybe we should have had on Wednesday's show. But we talked about offensive players. But when you look at what Nashville needs to do in the offseason, do you feel like they need to make a priority an offensive piece or a defensive piece? Like, what is the big priority for you?
I want to pull out my Spanish again and be like, why not both?
Why not both?
¿Por qué no los dos? But for me, I think, you really do need both. Like, you need both. But I think that the bigger organizational need, like, depth wise, is going to be defense, because this is probably the first time in a long time that the Predators, like, D-core is not going to be their strongest asset, for the next several years. And I think you have you have guys, we've talked about Spencer Stastny, we've talked about Mark Del Gaizo, you've got guys like Ryan Ufko, Adam Wilsby, like all great pieces, but you need to start restocking that a little bit. And so, whether that's you get defensemen in the draft or address a more immediate need, by which we've talked about, by getting a guy with some more size, especially now that Ryan McDonagh has gone back to Tampa, that, I think that it's something that we may want to look a little more closely at. You need offense for sure. You need more offense, but you're always going to need more offense. I feel like, I think that the defense one is a little bit more pressing at this particular moment.
Yeah. And I love what you say about why not both? I can't say it in Spanish, but why not both? Because where Nashville is at right now, they have an opportunity to make moves in both areas. And of course, I'm with you. I think it's the great Easter egg of looking for that 1C. Every team is trying to find that outstanding 1C. And that's something that Nashville is, of course, trying to do. But a lot of changes to the defense. And like you mentioned, there are some really high quality defensive prospects coming up. And I think they're going to see some NHL time. I think Spencer Stastny is going to be a regular. I think we're going to see some Mark Del Gaizo. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we saw some Ryan Ufko next season, maybe making an NHL debut. But you have to have some time to get those guys where you need them to be. They're not there's still a lot of growth that needs to happen there. And so when you look at where the Predators are defensively in kind of that development phase, and I'm telling you, I feel like we learned a lot from this Vancouver Canucks, first round playoff series. You have to have some size on defense to be successful. And like you said, that's something I think Nashville really needs to address. Lost Ryan McDonagh, we'll see what happens with Alexander Carrier, but that's not a size piece. So I agree with you. Why not both? We talked about some good offensive pieces, but today there is one defensive player that you are especially intrigued by. And I think this is well worth a nice long conversation. We're talking about Brandon Montour, of course, with the Florida Panthers, 66 games played, 8 goals, 25 assists, 33 points this season, playing in the Stanley Cup Finals. So things are going pretty good for him and his team as well. What is it that you like best about him and how he could fit with the Predators?
Well, there are a few things. And then going back to the why not both conversation, the Predators are a team that historically have relied on their blue line to produce a lot of secondary scoring.
Right.
And so now I'm like, if you're looking for some of these guys that we're talking about too, like defensemen that they have coming up, even, I'd throw Jake Livingstone in there too. That's another name I forgot to mention, but those aren't going to be high scoring defensemen, which is fine. That's not their game. But I think that it's a piece that you need, especially if you're the Predators. And that's a big part of how you've built this organization. And, if you're not getting secondary scoring from your depth forwards, then you got to get it from somewhere. So
right.
like, how about on the blue line? So to me, I look at a guy like Montour, people are going to whine at me and complain because he is 30 years old, and people are going to say, y'all are exhausting, all of you. We were supposed to get younger. Okay, you don't get younger overnight. That's called a complete tear down rebuild, and that's not what the Predators are doing, and that's nothing new. So like, everyone stop your whining. He's 30 years old. Also, just speaking from my own personal experience, 30, not that old.
That will preach, sister.
Technically, looking at his birthday, I am 3 months older than Brandon Montour. So before anyone complains about him being old, come talk to me.
That's right.
But seriously, I think he is a defenseman who, we've seen he can generate offense extremely well. He's a legitimate top pairing defenseman, which is what the Predators need. Like I said, they don't have Ryan McDonagh anymore. For people who may not be sold completely on Dante Fabro, and that's valid, I think, right now, looking at who's on the Predators roster, I think Fabro is the most obvious partner for Yossi on that top pairing, and he's done it before, and he's handled that role well. But I think if you're not completely sold on him right now as Yossi's defensive partner, you look at a guy like Montour. First of all, he's a right shot defenseman, which the Predators need now that they've, again, gotten rid of McDonagh. You mentioned this year he had the 33 points, 66 games. He was injured early in the year. I look back at last year, 2022-23, 80 games, 73 points.
That's
Are
incredible.
you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, yes, please sign me up for that. Now, he hasn't quite, that looking at all of his stats, that may be a bit of an anomaly because, the year before, 37 points, 81 games. I just think that still, though, for a defenseman, I'm willing to take that gamble. If it's a forward that has shown that much inconsistency in scoring, I'm less likely. But for a defenseman, I'm intrigued. And so he's going to be a free agent after the Stanley Cup final. The Panthers have a lot of guys on expiring contracts. It looks like they're probably going to want to throw a lot of money at Sam Reinhart with
Can't
the
blame
way that
them.
he's performed this year. So something's got to give at some point. And I think if you look at Montour's price point, he is, like I said, 30 years old. He's making $3.5 million a year right now. Will he be due for a raise? Yes. But even like $3.5 million due for a raise is still affordable if you're the
Right.
Predators. I think you could pay him $4 million. You could even, I would pay 4.5 for Brandon Montour. I would pay 4.5, get him for like 3 years. I mean, to me, that is a no brainer. And I think that makes too much sense. He gives you, like I said, the offense is a big piece, but also he's really good in his own zone. He's extremely physical, and I've noticed it even more so in these playoffs, how physical and tough he is, and how many, I mean, the Florida defense in general, my goodness,
Oh,
like
they're rough. Yeah.
it's, I mean, even more than I think I ever realized. And so I think that he fits that gritty, tough to play against kind of mentality that the Predators are going to be looking for. And I think he checks all the boxes except for being 30 years old. But I'm sorry, you're not going to get young guys at a price like that. I know
Right.
another defenseman that has been talked about, as potentially being a fit for the Predators, and we've talked about it, is Nikita Zadorov from Vancouver. Again, I think people are going to look at him with some recency bias, and I mean, he had himself a postseason, y'all. Like he absolutely did, and he earned a pay raise. But he's the kind of guy that I think teams are going to overpay for because of how big he is and because of how he performed in the postseason. I mean, there are people saying that Zadorov could make upward of $6 million a year. And he's what, I think 29? He's like 28, 29, something like that.
I
So it's
think
like
so.
it's not like he's significantly younger and you're going to get him for that much longer. I just think that the Predators should be out on that. You just offloaded a 6.75 million Ryan McDonagh. You don't want to pick up another one. And
Right.
so I think that Montour is absolutely a guy that while maybe build up that pipeline and kind of get those guys into, or get the system back to where you want it to be, I think he is a great answer. He is a serial winner. He's now in the Stanley Cup
100%.
final for
Yep.
the second year in a row. And if things keep going the way that they're going, it's looking pretty good for Florida. So could be a Stanley Cup champion at the end of this. I don't know. But I think that he's like, his physicality and his tenacity and just everything, it matches. I could see him, well, I'll say I could see him playing well under Andrew Brunette. He did play well under Andrew Brunette
That's
in
true.
Florida.
That's very
So
true.
so I think that, there's a familiarity there. There's a connection there. And, in Nashville, that means a lot that, if you have that connection with Barry Trotz or Andrew Brunette, he's the kind of guy that I could see the Predators wanting to go after. And the reason I like him so much and would push for this is because I think they can get him at a good price, good for them, good for the team. Because again, even if you're giving him a pay raise from 3.5 million is still, it's not going to break the bank.
Affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I agree with you. I love the serial winner piece that you're talking about. That's so important to Barry Trotz, especially when you have lost a piece like Ryan McDonagh and you have this young team that you're resetting. You want to bring in people that have made the long cup runs. And I think that's really, really valuable. This is such an interesting piece, especially with that Andrew Brunette connection. It will be interesting to see if Barry Trotz makes a swing at this guy.
Like no one, it seems like, outside of Nashville is talking about Brandon Montour landing in Nashville. And to me, it just makes all the sense in the world. It's just like a couple weeks ago when I was talking about Chandler Stevenson. Like, why is no one talking about this? This makes too much sense to me. But
Yeah.
again, as I said earlier in the week, I'm not Elliot Friedman, so no one listens to what I have to say. But my 2 cents, Brandon Montour, Nashville Predators should be having a conversation because I think it would be a great fit.
So that's a defensive player to keep your eye on this offseason. Of course, all the action kicks off July 1st. And here at Locked On Predators, we will keep you posted as Barry Trotz starts making moves in the offseason. Coming up, we're going to talk about something that's going to happen before the offseason. Of course, the NHL Draft is coming up the end of this month. They just wrapped up the Combine. And Emma and we got to talk about some of the things we heard coming out of that combine. We're going to do that in just a moment. All right, Nashville Predators fans, I want to take a minute to bring up one of our partners, the mobile game Ultimate Hockey GM. Ever dreamed of being an NHL GM and managing your hockey franchise? Do you think you could run the Predators better than Barry Trotz? Well, your dream can come true, and this game is most definitely for you. You can manage every strategic aspect of your team, play through the season, and lead it to glory. Hire the right coaches and staff, trade players or draft picks, navigate through free agency in the draft, all in a challenging and realistic game world. As a Preds fan, you know there is no offseason. GMs are constantly making moves at every point of the year to improve their team's chances, and that's why I think you will love this game. Ultimate Hockey GM is completely free and playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. By the way, Locked On Network listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On NHL in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just visit hockeygm.app or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate Hockey GM, start your dynasty today. All right, Emma, you and I on this Friday, we want to have a little discussion about the NHL Combine, but I do want to kick it off because you actually attended the NHL Combine. So I just wanted, share with us a little bit about that experience. What was the Combine? What was it like?
I did. I went to last year's combine, so the Bedard year.
Bedard year, yes.
Probably one of the better attended combines in recent memory for that reason alone. But it's interesting because it's not only, they do the normal combine stuff where you watch them. Like, I felt a little creepy sitting there. I'm like watching 17-year-old boys lift weights, and I'm just sitting there. I'm like, this is kind of weird. But they do the bench press and the high jump and the long jump and all of that stuff, which, how much does that really tell you? Who knows? But the big part of it is that it's a chance for NHL GMs and their staffs to meet with players, meet with the prospects, and they can meet with as many as they want to. Some teams come in and they're like, we only want to talk to 2 guys, and then other teams like Barry Trotz last year wanted to talk to everybody. So and it's it's your chance to do that, and they have interviews and just kind of little, it's like speed dating. That's how Jeff Kelty referred to it when I asked him about it. It's like speed dating with these prospects, and you just kind of get to know them a little bit. I mean, you've spent the last year plus watching them play, and you kind of have a sense of who they are on the ice, but you want to learn about who they are off the ice because that is a big component as well. So you're looking for things like that. And, you can't get an entire picture of who someone is, in a 15-minute interview, but you can get an idea. So I think that it was very interesting experience up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's a side that I had not seen before last year, but it's definitely interesting.
It's fascinating to me when I was kind of looking through, what are some of the things that they sort of compete in before you get to the interview. It's like Miss America before you get to the interview portion of the evening, but it's things like grip strength. They do a VO2 max test, height and wingspan measurement, which I'm like, first of all, we all know you don't list your height accurately. So why are you even wasting time at the combine?
Yeah.
Body composition by percentage of body fat. Y'all, some of the players at this combine have less body fat percentage than I had in the McDonald's I ate for lunch. It is insane,
Well, it's also like to that end, I talked about, getting a chance for GMs and hockey ops staff to interview prospects, but they also like teams will bring like the Predators brought David Good, their head athletic trainer, and they'll bring strength and conditioning coaches and people to talk to these guys about their training regimen, about their nutrition, about all of these other factors that we don't necessarily see.
You're not watching somebody's hockey skills. You're kind of gauging,
Yeah, there's no ice at the
there's
combine.
yeah, like,
There's no
so
ice.
you don't, you're not looking at somebody shooting, you're not looking at puck handling, you're looking at things like pull-ups
Yeah.
and, a jump station and all this kind of thing. So I just think it's so interesting what they put these players through. But they also, like you said, they do a medical evaluation, they do a psychological evaluation. But friends, we want to talk about the interview portion of the combine because word got out this week about some of the questions that some of the teams asked these young prospects, and I think it's amazing. So allegedly Utah asked prospects to share their Uber passenger rating.
Which is a sneaky good question. Because, like, that says who you are as a person. It's like how people who, like, when they go on dates, they say that they watch to see how their date treats the server. I think
Right.
it's because it's like that shows how you treat people, and I'm like, that's a sneaky good one. And did you hear what the Predators
I
allegedly asked?
I did. I think this is actually a really good one. I give credit for whoever came up with this one.
Yeah. If you were drafted into the war, not even just if you were in the war, if you were drafted, they went that far. If you were drafted into the war, would you be a medic, a sniper, or a pilot?
Again, another sneaky good question. What is your answer to that question? I'm dying to know. What would you be?
Well, I would absolutely not be a medic. I can tell you that right now.
Good.
I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna go sniper. I'm gonna go sniper. I think I'm like I value precision and accuracy, and I pilot. I would feel too nervous that like that would just be too much on my plate. I think
Yeah,
I'm like I don't if this whole plane goes down and it's my fault. But
that
no,
feels like
I
a lot.
yeah, it feels like a lot. Like sniper, I feel like, I'm good at focusing and as if I know what it takes to be a sniper in the military. But I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah. I would totally be a medic. I'm a caretaker.
Okay.
I would totally, yeah. You know how I worry.
I do know how you were.
You know how I
See,
worry.
see, someone come up to me. I was like, I'm sorry. Is that your bone sticking out of your leg? Please get away from me. Like,
Could you just put that back in?
can you please just,
They're not just your regular old questions. So Emma and I got to thinking, we want to take a stab at coming up with some questions at the combine. Coming up, we're going to share the questions that we think maybe Nashville might want to use next year at the combine. First, want to let you know this episode is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you are into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, Emma, we talked about some of the questions that leaked out of the combine, but you know what? You and I have questions of our own. So on this Fun Friday, let's talk about the questions we would want to ask some of these prospects. So kick us off. What is a question you think would be great to ask prospects at the combine?
When is the last time that you talked to your mother?
Come on, girl.
I mean, I'm not even a mother, but I would like to know.
I love that.
And then, follow up, like, what was the conversation? What was said?
Yes. I love that. The Milwaukee Admirals did a social media video asking, and it was, of course, around Mother's Day, asking, when's the last time you talked to your mother? And I was so impressed that most of them were like, yesterday. I talk to her every day. Igor Afanasieff FaceTimed his mom. And I was like, okay, you do learn a lot about a person when it comes to how often do you talk to your mom? I love that question.
I just think of it from the perspective of my mom, and she will be the first to admit that if she doesn't hear from me, she's sending out a search party. Like, if she doesn't hear from me at least once a day,
Right.
or if I don't respond in a timely manner to any of her texts. So I'm like, I just feel like, I don't know. I'd like to know the answer.
I think that's a great one. I think that's a great one. If I had to kick it off, and this one I think would be super fun to be a fly on the wall for, I would want to ask the prospects to teach me how to do something. So even if it's something I know how to do, teach me how to tie your shoe, teach me how to tape a stick, teach me how to order from DoorDash. Like, teach me how to do these things and see how do they do teaching me how to DoorDash. Now, friends, let's be honest. I know how to DoorDash.
You
But
know what? That's a sneaky good one, though, because I feel like it could teach you a lot or show you a lot about how creative they are, how patient they are. I say this as someone who at the rookie tournament last year had to teach David Poyle how to download an app on his phone. So I'm just saying, you just kind of learn. You learn things. Sometimes you learn things about yourself when you're answering that question
you
too.
really
So
do. You really do. But I'm like, I just think it would be great to see, like, okay, teach me something. Even if it's something I know, act like I don't
mhm.
and talk me through how you do it. I'd be interested to see how they handle that. What's another one you would ask a prospect?
So this is one I will admit that I kind of poached this from somewhere else. This was not an original idea. I still remember this. Now, y'all, I applied to college a very long time ago. This was not recent, but this is how powerful this question was and still stuck with me. On one of the college application questions that I had to answer, and apparently I did it, you know, I was satisfactory because I got into the college and now have a degree from there. The question was simply, give us your top 10 list. And you take that wherever you want to take it. If you like, I just did like top 10 things that I love, like just little like daily things that I love, that, I love the smell of Christmas trees. I love, just things like
Right.
that. Some people would take it like, okay, I'm going to give you my top 10 albums or my top 10 like restaurants or top 10 foods or top 10 anything, like shoe brands. I don't know, like you could
Yeah.
just kind of, I think the way that you answered that question, it could kind of tell a lot about you, that because it's so open-ended and you got to pick where you want to go with it.
That is a fabulous question.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. You would learn a lot about a player and what they're interested in and what they're passionate about.
Now, granted, because of the time constraint in these interviews, I would maybe say like give us your top 5.
Right.
But I mean, I think it's, because for me, someone who likes details and likes direction, I was like, I need more. My top 10 what? I don't know. And I,
What is the
was
question?
like, this is giving me anxiety. But still it would tell, how the player responds to the question, like their body language too. Like, do they get flustered trying to think of something? I don't know. It's just, I think that it'd be an interesting one.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a great, and I feel the angst of that question as well.
I'm
There
like,
is some
tell me
angst.
top 10 what? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
like I know people who did like top 10 movies and top 10, I don't know, sports teams or what video games, I mean, really whatever you could think of. I just did like these are 10 things that I like.
I think that's great.
So, I mean, it worked, but again, got into college and here we are. So must have been okay. But
That's right. They loved
that's
it.
fun. All right.
They loved it.
What's another one for you?
I would ask somebody, what is the one personal item that you've consistently had with you since you left home and why?
Okay.
Just because I think it tells you a little bit about what is important to them. It tells you a little bit about connections in their life. It tells you a little bit about, do they have connections in their life? How tightly do they hold on to things, memories, all of that? Because you remember, and this just blows my mind, these guys, some of them leave home so young. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, how do you, is there something that helped you cope with that? Is there something that is super meaningful to you? Why is that meaningful to you? How do you remain connected when there's distance and just that kind of thing? I would be curious to know and see what they would have to say about that.
Yeah, and it shows you kind of like what's important to them too, because
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be some like precious heirloom type thing. It's just
Right.
like, oh, I've used the same pair of gloves for this long because whatever the reason is,
Yeah.
I think that's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Give us one more, Emma.
Okay, this one I have to say, this is probably my favorite, so I saved it for last.
Perfect.
If I'm the interviewer,
Mhm.
I'm looking at the player, I say, chirp me right now. How would you chirp me right now? Not just give us your best chirp in general, because I think you have to tailor the chirp to
Mhm.
like the specific person. So looking at me and talking to me, how would you chirp me? And I would love to hear the answer.
Tommy Novak would never have been drafted.
No. Well, let's just say let's hope he had a really good top 10 list
There you go.
and talked to his mother like 10 minutes ago, because he would fail this portion. He'd be like, I don't know.
I don't know.
You're kind of short. Like that's
I
probably
don't
like
even think you would say that, but that's fabulous.
so
Like, I
I
love
would just
that.
like to know. And again, like I just think that it tells you like how are you big on like the game within the game. It doesn't mean it's not like a pass fail. It's not like, oh, if you can't chirp me, then you're not, then you're not what I'm looking for. No, it just shows me what kind of like, is this a big part of your game? And like,
Right.
can you do it? Like, how intuitive are you? Like, if you've now just spent 10 minutes in a room with me, knowing what you know about me, even just looking at me, like,
Give it to me.
chirp me. I want to hear it. And I would kind of just like, I mean, I know me being a woman too, they would be extra like, oh, I don't know. But I would just kind of see like which ones would actually do it too.
Oh my gosh. I really feel like you would learn a ton about people. But again, Tommy Novak never would have made it to the NHL.
No.
And Luke Evangelista would have been a first pick,
Oh,
the
yeah.
first pick in the draft.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we're curious, what questions would you ask the prospects at the NHL Combine? We would love to hear from you. Tweet us your questions at LO_Predators or leave a comment under this YouTube video and let us know. We would love to hear your Combine questions as well. That's going to do it for today's episode. Before we sign off, though, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and find your work.
You can find me online at Emma_Lingen on Twitter and Instagram. You can chirp me if you would like, but just know that I can take it, but I can also dish it out. So just be warned. And you can find my work online at the Hockey News.
All right, don't come chirp at me because I'm tired and I've raised teenagers and I've had enough. But you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work at Penalty Box Radio as well. That's going to do it for this week's episodes of Locked On Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back here Monday.